The ultimate goal of the Urban Servant Leadership Unconference, we want to be able to bring together as many pieces of the puzzle as we can so that ultimately we put together a picture that helps us see and to understand what a valuable, sustainable community needs to look like.
I'm here because my personal life mission is to help others help themselves. It's the epitome of what servant leadership is all about.
So I wanted to come to the Unconference today so that I could discuss the Healthy Indiana Plan, which is a healthcare plan that's available to folks between the ages of 19 and 64 who have incomes at less than 138% of the federal poverty level.
My name is Anita Adams. I work with Indianapolis Healthy Star. We know that there are inequalities that are happening in our community, and we work to reduce those for families.
You have to be called to be a servant leader because you know that you are going to give and you may not get anything in return, and that's okay. An urban servant leader is called to do what we do.
You should really research it. If you are not here, I urge you, I cannot say this enough, that you need to come to the next conference.
Fix it. What's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? This is Pastor G. With Community Conversations. I am the founder of Unite for Change. I'm just trying to make sure that my audio is on. Make sure y'all can hear me. If you can hear me, go ahead and let me know. There it is. Okay, I hear myself. I just want to thank y'all for joining with us. Again, this is Community Conversations. As I said on last night, some of y'all joined last night, and I was mentioning that Community Conversations is a program that we started on last year. But because of the pandemic and all of the changes that have gone on with us doing social distancing, we literally had to revamp how we did the program because we used to bring all of our guests into the studio. Well, now we have set up an avenue where we can continue to do community conversations, and we just do it virtually. We do it online. We do it the way you see it now. So we are live on all social media channels, and we are bringing great information for our community to you. And here's what's going to happen today. I want y'all to know we've got a jam-packed day today. We're kicking this thing off with my good friend, Reverend Richard Bray, who's a PhD student candidate over there at Christian Theological Seminary. We're going to talk for the next few minutes about some great things, but also notice that we've got interviews scheduled throughout the day. Attorney Roderick Bohannon will be with us with NAACP. Reverend David Green Sr. with Concerned Clergy will be with us. We are blessed to have Dr. Woody Myers, who is running for governor of the state of Indiana. We also have my good friend Dee Ross with the Ross Foundation. And last but certainly not least, Sister Rain Wilson. She is new to the city, and she's over there at the Performing Arts Academy of Indiana Black Expo. So I want y'all to sit tight, get ready, share this information. Y'all need to share. Get some other folks on, let them know that we are about to talk about how do we move our community forward. What next? After the marches, after the protests, what next? And so right now, I want to welcome to the stage my good friend, Brother Richard Bray. How you doing?
I'm doing well, Pastor G. Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited about the conversation.
Man, this one's going to be real easy. This is going to be real easy. Let everybody see a little bit about who you are. You're Richard Bray. You're a PhD student. You're more than that, but you are with the African American Preaching and Sacred Rhetoric at CTS. But outside of that, man, let's jump right in. We don't have a lot of time, man. What does what you're doing now have to do with what's going on right now? Come on, help us out.
Well, first of all, we understand that as people, that preachers, one thing is obvious. Preachers have been invited to the protest. They haven't been necessarily always leading. And so now what we are seeing across the country and in our communities, young people have taken up the mantle of leadership and then moving forward in public protest in ways that some faith communities and some faith leaders have not been as vocal or out as front as others. But I also want to acknowledge the number of faith leaders that are operating in spaces and places that not necessarily may be public, but are still advocating for the elements of social change and social justice that is occurring.
Right.
So I think that there requires a multiplicity of ways to get to liberation and social justice and equity and inclusion. But the public voice and the cries that we are hearing from the young people, I'm just excited about. I really am.
Now, you said something I want to elaborate on a little bit, because there are multiple paths to victory here. And one of the things that I've been encouraged, but at the same time discouraged by a little bit, has been the fact that there's a sense that if you are not, let's see, how could I say this? If you are not doing what I'm doing, you're not doing anything. So if you're a pastor and you're not marching, then you're not doing anything. Or if you are a young person and you're not praying, then you're not doing anything. How do we move forward recognizing the roles of everyone involved?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to acknowledge that there takes multiple things to do in order to get what we really want. And there has never been one avenue only.
Right.
Plus, the gifts and skills that people offer for community change is necessary.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer, so I need a lawyer to be a part of the social justice change movement. He or she understands the laws in ways that I could never understand.
Right.
So to ignore or to then push him or her out is just pushing back what we all need. And so we need to build a bigger table for inclusion.
Right.
A bigger table that offers multiple voices, multiple perspectives that will then get there. And so I think what I'm seeing in the protests is people, the young people and many of our allies are advocating not for the same table, but for bigger tables. And so that requires that some old things be torn down and some new things be rebuilt. And so the tough thing about letting go of old things is that we become familiar with them, we love on them, and we like the way that they are. But to say that this no longer hurts, or that this particular table no longer works for the number of people that are coming and that want to be involved in the conversation, for those that have been there, is a sense of displacement.
Right.
And this displacement causes fear. And this fear rejects other people. And so if we can begin to build another table, expand on the tables that are already there, then I think people will recognize that, hey, there's multiple voices that can help us get there.
Okay, so, all right, so, I've heard this table analogy before, and I see my brother Donnell Howard is on. God bless him, Pastor Howard. Good to see you. If you have any questions, certainly. If anyone has any questions, you can drop them into the chat box. We can not only see those questions, but we can add those questions to the conversation. But here's I've heard this table analogy before. But if we were to take that table analogy a little further, this gets into the one of the things that you mentioned when we were asking you about coming on, and that is the grief, not of just the grief that our community is feeling right now, but also the grief that we have been feeling, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And watch this, because many of us were down marching, praying, rallying the troops, not just after George Floyd. We were doing this, after, Mike, I can't think of his last name, but in the early 90s, a young African-American man found himself dead, handcuffed in the back of a police car. So, we've been traumatized for a while here as a community, yet now we see this movement. How do we handle that table when some folk are on the appetizer, others are on the main course, and yet others are on the dessert? And maybe some folks showed up and the dinner we at the table, but everybody gone, the dinner's over. We're at different places in this. How do we synthesize, recognize, I get the table, the new people, whatever, but everybody's not on the same page and not at the same place. How do we synthesize that in order to move forward in your estimation?
I think one of the things is you said it in your question. You have to be able to acknowledge people right where they are. And if you have been involved in the fight, if you've been involved and now you see this wave of new people coming, then you have to be able to say, hey, I see you coming, let me give you some history. On the second hand of that, the new people that are coming should not be trying to explain their way as to the experiences that they're having as if it's brand new.
Right.
I heard the genius of Otis Moss Jr. say, he was a good friend of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. after the assassination. He said, we never had a time of public mourning when King died. Mm-hmm. So if we haven't mourned as a community in the person and persona and the genius of MLK, so this is a deep seat of communal grief that goes so far back into our ethos as a Black people that we have not successfully wrestled with it. Yeah. And so there are deep, profound places of grief and mourning that we have not addressed both individually and collectively as Black and brown people. So I think what is happening is we are now seeing new voices, is hearing the new volcano, the new words of grief and pain and suffering and oppression that are coming out in different languages. But the underlying piece is it is not brand new. It has deep-seated roots, and until we begin to both honor the ancestors that have been there before us, the men and women that are on the front lines before the protests, and then those that are there now and will be coming later, there has to be this sense of community education around the grief, and understanding that there has been progress, but there's still some more progress to be made.
Okay, now, I mean, you tiptoeing on a whole lot when you say that, because we often say in our community that we need to have a conversation amongst us, that we need to have a conversation. There is the social justice, the reform, there is, these other conversations, but at times we need to kind of go into our own little conversations around what we need to see for ourselves in our community. Now, let's talk a little, because you are Reverend Richard Bray, so let's talk a little bit about the ecumenical side of this and where these conversations really need to happen. Because when we talk about racial injustice, and when we talk about, all that race and all that Jim Crow has done to our communities, I think we're all in agreement that this is not a solution that we can come up with, because it's a problem that we did not create. And so when we're having these conversations, how can we have constructive conversations without including the people, I'm just asking, including the people who are actually the ones that have caused the issue? I understand we need to grieve. I understand we need to talk. But when we talk amongst ourselves, we're in a country where we're not suppressing ourselves holistically. There's another force at work. So how do we begin those conversations with the right voices in the room?
I think that there are people that are standing, I'll call them on the bridge, that are part of the white church, that are trying to have the conversations in white churches. But the truth be told is there's a segment of white church America or mainline Protestants that don't want to have it, this conversation around racial injustice. And so there's a hashtag on Twitter that I want to give credit to my instructor and friend and colleague, the good Reverend Dr. Andre Johnson out of the University of Memphis, that started this hashtag called White Church Quiet. Follow it on Twitter. White Church Quiet then points to the ways that the white church has been quiet around systemic injustice and how they have been using theology in order to justify being quiet because they don't see the gospel as liberating. They don't see the gospel and Jesus as doing the work of social justice. Some only see it as a piety piece, individualism. And so hashtag White Church Quiet then calls them out. Now, I've been in conversations with smaller congregations that are saying, hey, help me to listen and to understand. So I believe that there has to be two things that occur. One, mainline Protestant churches, Catholics and others have to be willing to go and have these conversations on their own. Two, out of that group, there has to be clergy and others and lay leaders that are willing to have these tough conversations in predominantly white spaces. And so one of the things that I'm clear about, I can't do the work of white supremacy in white spaces. That's some stuff they're gonna have to do on their own. And what I'm particularly happy about is that the children who benefit from white supremacy, the children that have been beneficiaries of privilege now have their own scales lifted off of their own eyes and saying that this is wrong. So now this kind of education that has been occurring in the young people, young whites and Hispanic Latinos and African Americans, they're now saying, hey, wait a minute, in my family, this is wrong. So they are on the front line going into their spaces and places and saying, we got to change. And so I'm encouraged by them doing that. But there still has to be this conversation across ecumenical lines.
Man, we got to curtail this conversation. We're coming up on the conclusion. And I don't want to. We could talk about this for a long time because there's so much to it. But I'm going to ask you one last question because my good friend Sister Claire Pope dropped a little note in, and this is what she said. I'll try to put it on. It's going to look a little weird, but this is kind of what she has said. It's not going to work. Anyway, I've heard a young community leader state old way answers need to be let go. What is your perspective on that perspective from one of our young leaders?
Old ways must be let go.
Old way, where is this? Old way answers need to be let go. That's what she said.
Well, I think that there were answers that were relevant for the time that they were offered. And so the end goal still remains the same. So I think that there has to be a conversation as to why that particular answer was then situated, and then recognizing what we need to answer today may have to go, and that is okay. And so, but at the same time,
now wait a minute.
I don't think.
Whoa. You said, and that's okay, but I would argue that those that are representing that answer have a problem letting go. I'm just throwing it out for free. This has been my experience, that they have a problem letting go, and in so having a problem letting go of the old context, or the answer that was based on the old context, this again has created the generational gaps within our own communities, because the baton of letting go is being held on to, even though it is no longer working where we are. Am I missing it?
No, this is what I say. For the leaders that want to hold on, I have a question. Do you trust the God in the person that's coming behind you?
Wait for an answer. Seriously, do you?
Do you trust the God in the person that's coming behind you? And can you hold on to the stick while the other person hold on, and together we walk? Because I can't keep going. The fact of the matter is, the energy that's required, our elders and our community don't have it in order to go on. So at some point, they're going to have to let go. They're going to have to pass the baton.
Yeah,
but the question remains,
but
do you trust the God and the people that's coming behind you?
Look at the residual impact, and not the residual impact so much as the collateral damage in that span, and we got to let this go, but the collateral damage in that span of time where we're wrestling over the idea of, do you trust me? And we can't run, we cannot run a relay race in twosies. We can't do that.
Right.
The idea is to pass baton in order to win the race, and we're getting further and further behind because we're squabbling in the back with the baton. Matter of fact, to the point where the baton is now on the ground. So I guess, and we don't have time to deal with it, but I guess, and I see it happening in the chat box right now, but I guess in the middle, in the space of wrestling with that, we're losing people. We're still having black on black. We're having black on blue issues. We're having justice issues. We're falling behind economically. We're falling behind with regard to health disparities and infant mortality. So I guess I want to make sure, and I know you do too, that we move forward. And I think some of these ideological and some of these communal and some of these generational arguments or whatever you want to call them, mistrust, are what really seemingly holds us back within our community. And I get you. White folk, in their church, they need to have their conversations and deal with what they got to deal with and come to Jesus on that and repent, right? Mm-hmm. But I think for us, we got to get past some of the pride before, comes for the fall, some of the pride things that cause us to hold on to ideas that are not giving us the ability to gain, to make progress. And man, I'm sorry. Can I get you back?
Anytime.
Okay, we're going to get you back. But I tell y'all what, remember, I'm going to put this thing on pause. We're going to do another countdown, and we're going to come back with Brother Roderick, Attorney Roderick Bohannon, who is with the Greater Indianapolis branch of the NAACP. He's with Legal Redress. So y'all know NAACP can sue folk. Y'all do know that. They can sue folk. All right. So it's good to have, am I missing it? It's good to have an attorney in the house. All right. Because there's some folk just need to be sued. Nevertheless, we're going to bring him up in just a few minutes. So y'all hang out. We're going to play some music and we'll see y'all back in about 5 minutes once we get him on. Brother Richard Bray, thank you. God bless you.
Thank you.
We're going to try to get rid of this echo, y'all. We'll see you back at another time. On another Saturday, we're going to see you back. God bless you. And we'll see y'all in just a few minutes. Okay? Peace. ultimate goal of the Urban Servant Leadership Unconference, we want to be able to bring together as many pieces of the puzzle as we can so that ultimately we put together a picture that helps us see and to understand what a valuable, sustainable community needs to look like.
I'm here because my personal life mission is to help others help themselves. It's the epitome of what servant leadership is all about.
So I wanted to come to the Unconference today so that I could discuss the Healthy Indiana Plan, which is a healthcare plan that's available to folks between the ages of 19 and 64 who have incomes at less than 138% of the federal poverty level.
My name is Anita Adams. I work with Indianapolis Healthy Star. We know that there are inequalities that are happening in our community, and we work to reduce those for families.
You have to be called to be a servant leader because you know that you are going to give and you may not get anything in return, and that's okay. An urban servant leader is called to do what we do.
You should really research it. If you were not here, I urge you, I cannot say this enough, that you need to come to the next conference.
What's up, everybody? This is part 2 of our community conversations today. We are talking about on today's community conversation, our way forward, navigating the new normal. And as y'all heard in the first half of this hour, we had Reverend Richard Bray on. We had a really great conversation that I believe was just so awesome, and I'm certainly thankful for him. But now we have another great individual who is on the line with us. So we're going to get him on in just a second, but I just want to remind you all, if you're watching this right now, go ahead and share. We're going to be on quite a bit today. We got a lot of interviews we got to do today, as you can see. And so I want you to share this with others. Let them know, say, hey, you need to get on over there because we need to have a conversation in our community about what do we do after these marches? What do we do after these protests? What do we need to be doing right now to make sure that we see not only positive change in this moment, but positive change that can become a movement in our community. So we're going to be talking to people not only here in Indianapolis, but also we'll be talking to others who are throughout our country who are seeing great progress and strides. But right now, I want to welcome a good friend of mine, brother Roderick Bohannon. He is an attorney, but he's also the chair of the NAACP Legal Redress Committee. Brother Roderick, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, sir. Doing good.
It is so wonderful to have you. Let's see how this looks. Yeah, it's so wonderful to have you in today. We got a lot to get to, mainly because we got a lot going on in the streets. Would you agree?
I agree.
Okay, we got a lot going on in the streets. And the NAACP has a history of activism in this country around racial issues. And so with that, let's jump right on in. And I'm watching, if you got a question or a comment, you can throw that into the chat. I'm watching the chat as we're going through these interviews here today. Let's jump on in because I really want to know what is the stance of the NAACP in particular with regard to the community issues that we are facing right now.
Okay, which specific issue are referring to?
Let's talk about police community relations. Let's talk about the reforms that the 8 can't wait right now that Obama was pushing. The other local what we call demands or agenda from the various community organizations around police reform, defunding the police, disbanding the police, reallocating funds to different areas. Let's talk about what is the stance on those issues?
Well, the NAACP has been involved in police reform for some time, going back long before most people think of Rodney King, but longer than Rodney King. The national office was involved in the task force that the Obama administration had put together called the 21st Century Plan for policing, which got shelved by the present number 45 administration. I won't call his name, we'll call number 45. As the issues taking place across the country, right now the national is beginning crafting and understanding in terms of what is meaning by defunding. Unfortunately, that's a misnamed name. I know what people mean by it, but it really doesn't mean, for many people, defunding in the sense that you unfund and then no longer exist. We are talking about trying to understand what is that policing, what to look like. We are talking about when Republicans talk about budget, they call it trimming effect. When the community talk about take a look at the police budget and trying to allocate unnecessary funding, also we want to call it defunding. So language is important. So I think when the community talk about in terms of look at the police budget, trying to figure out what realistically they should be funded for, which is mostly personnel, those kind of equipment, basic equipment. When you're talking about the militarization of police departments happening, and it's been happening for quite some time, NAACP for years have kept trying to tell communities to take a look at the police department and specifically the militarization, which is what's happening. And most communities kind of ignored it. So your first question is, where do we go from here? Meaning that most people need to understand the police department budget. Right now in Indianapolis and Marion County, our budget is taking place now in August, and it's public. And so the first question becomes, people need to understand in terms of what does the budget look like, what's being proposed. Now, we all don't have skills in terms of as an accountant. You don't need to. You can look at it and see what's being proposed and begin getting involved in discussion. Your council representative is the first place you need to look at. Those on the public safety committee, and those names can be looked at online, and then your own council representative, and have discussion with them in terms of the police department budget. Because if you don't, then you miss the opportunity to make sure your representative on the council is voting the way you think to be voting to the budget. Second, the internet is a wonderful idea, a wonderful instrument if we use it. You can look at and turn to understand IMPD budget structure and IMPD structure because it's all online. And you ought to do that. Third, what I would call citizenship. Many of us, unfortunately, those of my gray hair stuff, had citizenship when we were in school. They don't teach that anymore. And the very first rule of citizenship is to educate yourself. And so I say to folks, they want to get involved in the issue in terms of police and police reform. Go on the internet and read. You can go to NAACP, you'll find paper we work with, we written and policies. You can look at it in terms of from the National Association of Police Associations, with the police association, their viewpoint. You can look at for Stony Brook University, Chicago University. There are all kind of papers out there in terms of what policing want to look at in the 21st century. Yeah. There should be the link on the local NHP website to the national. Or you can go to the national website and you'll be able to link in all of the different studies and policies put on the board. Unfortunately, we're a branch, and as a branch, you follow the national guidelines. And so often, people want to take on positions that national has said has not either galvanized a policy on yet or still working on or said no to. They have said to us and have led us to believe or said to get involved in your community and turn to police issues. And so we have been. We've been doing under people forget we're a policy, political, legislative branch. A lot of our work is legal. As we bring lawsuits in terms of trying to deal with systemic issues. We may bring an individual if it looks like it can impact a larger body. We do policy stuff. A lot of our policy stuff is here locally as well as international. And so we developed a link in terms of our city county council. We developed our link in relationship with the Indiana Black Caucus, and our national policy level are involved in the national. So we spend a lot of time trying to get folks who are involved in legislative policies to understand our position, the community position, and getting them on board to change their posture to do that. It is not pretty work. It is a long struggle. It is learning the other side position and then trying to figure their weak points. It is learning in turn of trying to convince them why they are to take a position you need to take. It's the art of negotiation. And that's the second point. Folks who are activists need to also learn the art of negotiation. And also that means sitting down and what I call being quiet. Listen to the other side without really commenting and begin to digest and understand what are they saying or not saying. and then be crafting a response to what they're responding to, and then also crafting your response about where you think they need to move to. It's instrumental when you want folks to move to a certain position.
It's interesting because some of the things that I hear you talking about, particularly as you contextualize them in terms of step 1, step 2, step 3. This is where we need to start. This is what we might need to do next, and this is what we do after that. I'm wondering, since the NAACP has a history of taking these kinds of steps, and you sort of have a structure and a brand that is understandably systematic in how you do what you do. When you look at what's going on in our communities and in the streets all across our country and even now outside of our country, what role do you see the NAACP playing? And I'm talking about as a partner to or integrating with what is already happening. You all have a history of it. You have the system. You understand it. Yet there are still these questions of what do we do next? What do we do now? Well, I'm wondering, is there sort of an overlap or an intersection or an interplay or a role that NAACP can play in picking up some of the pieces of what's happened and helping to move and advance the agenda of what we need to see happen in our communities? What is that overlap? What is that interplay? Where do we see that connection and collaboration between what's going on in the streets and what you all do?
Two points. One is we always believe in collaboration, partnership. So in Indianapolis, you have the AACI, the African American Coalition, we're part of. We often don't necessarily sign on to position papers immediately because our policy requires to run up the flag. And so we're also involved in terms of crafting and helping under crafting position, help people understand where you need to go with it, where do you need to move it to, and then pushing it forward. We have linked to a lot of the new activists. And we say, okay, how do you want us to partner with you? As my daddy told me, says, as you get older, you realize that you don't need to do all the pieces. Your point would be, how do I help the pieces needed, and what piece do you need me to do? And so with the young activists, I'm glad they're out there. Indy 10, what's the new women on the go, I believe is what they're called, or Women Bridges, the Indiana Faith community, a lot of the activists who have been pushing forward in turn to help organize these marches. I'm glad they're doing that. Now the question is, as we begin to frame, we say, let us help you understand the policies you've proposed and craft it so they can be understood. And when I say understood, it means also that unfortunately you got to do with the political structure and the corporate community council. We have a relationship with them. We have an understanding of how they think. And so part of our role is turned up helping to bridge the policy. Also understand when the policy will not work. Often we have policies positions that aren't time for. And we need to understand when they're not time for it. And people say, well, you're being slow, or you're not being progressive. Unfortunately, when you do policy stuff, you have to recognize it's instrumental in terms of moving things forward. That's a role we play. Litigation is not, it is long term. You're in the court and when you file, it's a year before you get a hearing. And then if you lose, you got to appeal. So it may be 3 or 4 years before you get a decision that you want. And so we often say to folks, when we go down this road, understand that it's not immediately. It is long term, but it's not immediately. That's the role we play. We have those relationships, and we partner with anybody. We've had discussions. It's like the example. The Sunday before the mayor announced that he was doing his curfew, we had discussion with the mayor trying to understand a number of issues about it before he proposed it. One, how is it going to impact the most vulnerable community, i.e. those on the street people? Because once you shut down, you do a curfew, where do they go? They're not going to shelter. You don't have enough shelter even if you wanted to. When you look downtown, a lot of folks live downtown because they find it safe. So your curfew, what are you going to do with them? And we raise questions in terms of realistically, is the curfew realistic in terms of it? Are you talking about downtown you're trying to do the curfew? Because all of Marion County is not possible. You don't have enough police for it. And we saw that. If you rode around during the curfew, you saw that of the upper and north side of the community up by 96 folks was just riding down the street like nothing happened to it. So we raised those issues, and say you can do it. We can't tell you not to. We understand why you want to. Here, the issue you need to be concerned of if you don't want litigation. We've been partnering with the ACLU. They put together a whole policy position in terms of they think of police reform. One of them we've been struggling with in terms of the not just simply the chokehold, because the chokehold is just one of it, but the whole policy that when you look at, talk to doctors that cause injury for breathing, the knee on the back. If you learn your back and you stomp on your stomach, and I got pressure in your back, it does impact your ability to breathe. And so we have discussions with the police department saying what other tactics you can do other than on the knee on the back, or is there a certain place that you can do the immobilization? Can you do the shoulder so you're on the shoulder and not on the back? People do have weak backs. I have a bad back, and so if you put a knee on my lower back, you're going to cause me excruciating pain. What am I going to do? I'm going to squirm because pain causes people to do things. And so, those aren't juicy things as you try to craft through policy to make people understand. But that's what we've been doing. So we've been nitpicking and trying to work through with the new chief of police. We have a relationship with him. We met with him in January. It was supposed to be an introduction for an hour. It was a 5-hour meeting with him. Very blunt. He was blunt with us in terms of his understanding his role as the chief of police. He was very blunt in terms of his concern that he was going to lose a large number of African American police officers came in his 60s who were now retiring. And his question was, those brothers and sisters who helped craft and move the police department where they are now retiring. Matt Stewart is retired. And so the question becomes, he's concerned about how to replace them so that I do have a balanced police force with a significant number of African Americans, because I'm now losing a large number of my workforce of retiring. So those we have frank discussion with them, and he had frank discussion with us, and we call them. We saw the thing that happened with the disturbance on Market Street, West Market Street. We talked to them about what we thought were incorrect. We talked to them about what we thought in terms of the medic issues that we saw and got calls saying, hey, we set up medic sites for people who were demonstrating so that if they had an issue, we can deal with them, and they came and took all our medical equipment. Those aren't things that you don't want to get credit for it, but those are things you have connection to be able to make calls and say, hey, why are we doing this, and we need to stop that. That's part of the role we play.
Okay, so here's my deal, and I want to be totally frank, and you and I have had some frank conversations. All right, and so I really want to stick with I really want to get frank here, because what I hear you really saying is that the work you do takes patience. Right, it's as King and others have said, it's a long arc, right, toward right. Correct. So it takes patience to do. Now, here's my deal, and here's where when we talk about the new normal and how do we make progress moving forward, what I sense is, and some have even said this, that there is neck break speed change happening because of the George Floyd situation. The George Floyd murder. Because of that, there's a lot of progress, or let me say it like this, progress being made extremely fast. And what I think I hear you saying is that even though things might be happening fast, we need to maybe be a little more patient and slow down and ensure that those things that we are calling progress are actually the things that we need to see happen.
Not only see happen, but they can be sustained. You and I talk. I'm 69, and so let's talk frankness. I remember when I first between 1978 to about 87, 88, maybe 90, you saw downtown a large number of black males. You could tell they were working, and that's when corporations said we need to hire more African Americans, and we need to hire African American males. Okay, now walk downtown now. How often do you see brothers walking downtown with a suit, jacket, suit, tie, knowing they're working someplace? You don't. What you do see them going into is to the courthouse. And so we push corporations to hiring.
Or to get their ankle bracelets.
That's exactly right. We push corporations for diversity. But we didn't do the long work to make sure that the word diversity and hiring inclusion is long term. And so what I'm saying to you, yes, as we move forward at rest, break, and speed, we need to make sure that we have anchors behind it so it don't dissipate and the change you want is gone. If you want to look at when I went to law school, in 1972, the number of black folks in law school is equal to what it was in 1972. No wonder they tell you. When you look at the AMA, the Black Medical Association, talk about the number of black doctors in medical school. It's equal to what it was in 1968. And so we push, and so they'll say we have the policies, we have the procedures for inclusion and recruiting, but we don't have the sustainability. And so that's what I'm saying. As we move forward, let's make sure that the anchors are there, that it continues.
Okay, so, all right, so because I understand what you're saying, and I think that what you're saying is making sense. Here is, again, in our frankness, are we succeeding when it comes to establishing those benchmarks, those pillars that can hold up whatever the policy, whatever the legislation, as Pastor Johnson said in a previous conversation that was had on social media, he said, it's one thing to agitate, but we must move to legislate. And so in order to hold up this legislation, in your estimation, are we getting it done?
Well, yes and no. Let me give you an example. This notion in terms of the policy being pushed by the activists in terms of defunding. What I hope happened, and I've said to our chairperson, and I've said to the ACI that one of us have to move to pull together all the different bodies who are activists and say, okay, let's sit down and make sure we have an understanding and agreement to what we mean, because we don't want to get played one against the other. And the system does that. And so they'll play one against the other, say, well, this organization says this about this policy and this, and we lose. And so the very first thing we need to do, and for those in your audience who belong to different organizations, I don't care who called the meeting. If we need to call a meeting, we'll call it. And we don't need to drive it. Let's make sure we all have an understanding of what we mean by what we want.
Now, to your point, before you get to point number two, I do want to inject this. On our website, on the Unite for Change website, and this gets to your point, Attorney Bohannon, on our website, when you hit the progress link, we have a page where we have compiled lists of demands and agendas from multiple organizations. Okay. I do want to talk about, I think it's the 6 that the NAACP deals with, but you have everything from the 8 Can't Wait to the AACI, to Black Lives Matter with regard to Sean Reed, but also Black Lives Matter with regard to George Floyd. Then you have, multiple organizations. There's roughly 64 demands or agenda items on that webpage. Now, I'm not saying that one item is not better than the other, but what I am saying is, to your point, we've got a lot of things going on. We've got a lot of requests that we're making of the administration, a lot of requests that we're making of community leaders. And what I'm not clear on is how are we bringing those lists into alignment and into accord and thinking very critically about what should be demanded, what should be on the agenda, what should be number one. And I'm not saying that the loudest megaphone is necessarily the correct megaphone, if that makes sense.
No, it makes sense. It's what I call the 3 waves in a sound. There's the subtle sound you never hear. There's the sound that our ears pick up, and it's the level of sound that a lot of our human ears don't pick up. For example, dogs pick up. All those are critical. And so when you think, for example, the Reed issue, that's a different movement that needs to be sustained by the organization, but need to say, we're going to keep pushing the issue. We want you to hear as we do that. And this is our piece. We may be the sub piece that you often don't hear because we have the connection with the different political structures, the mayor's office, the chief police. And so we push that sound ear so we can say, but we all have understanding of what is the piece we need to bring forward. So that ultimately, when it comes together, it's the same. You have 64 demands. The question is, who role is it now to pull those organizations to say which is first, second, third?
Right.
It's important to understand.
Right.
The Reed issue need to move forward and making sure that there's equal justice. As an example, we had raised beforehand with the and the chief police came out and said, why is the judge took so long, 6 weeks, to go ahead and finally appoint a special prosecutor? That's just round one, because right now you need to have discussion and making sure that she does her job. Yes, the young lady is, as an African American woman, that she has a very good reputation, which she is, but she's still within the structured system. I had debated against folks not calling for a special prosecutor, because I said to folks, when you do that, you lose control and accountability. And so, the community wanted independent, and we have it. Now we have to figure out how to utilize the mechanism that we asked for to make sure we have control. And we may not like the outcome, because we lost the ability to hold accountable the two pieces we needed: the prosecutor's office and the mayor's office. They're off the hook. Like it or not, they're off the hook, because the independent counsel now has the whole control of that. The investigation arm of it, the legal analysis arm of it, and the decision is going to be hers and hers only. And once that's done, there is no appeal process. So often what we kept saying to folks why not to, they didn't understand why we said no.
Gotcha. Now, I don't want you to forget about the second point you were making, but there were some questions that hit into the chat box. And Pastor Howard asked, does any of those match? And I want you to just go to the page and you'll see, yes, there is some overlap with regard to what some people are asking for. There is some overlap. Yes. So go to that, if you can, just go to Unite for Change. In that slider, you'll see progress. Click that and it'll take you to the page. And you can look at it for yourself. And again, I'm not saying one agenda item is better than the other, but what I am saying is that we need to have a conversation amongst ourselves and amongst these organizations as to where do we need to collaborate, what, is this agenda item the best thing to have on the list? Someone else said in the chat that they feel like having a lot of agenda items, Latoya says, a lot of agenda items reduces our credibility. It takes the credibility away from the movement when it's not presented in some type of coordination and some type of order. I don't know if you agree or not, Attorney Bohannon, but this is kind of what's being said.
I think every piece that's just in there is critical important. Let's gather that. So none of them should be put in a negative light. The question is, which can be done immediately and which on long term? That's the point we need to deal with. What I'm saying to the community folks right now is that the opportunity to begin deal with the issue of defunding is now. Because why? The budget process is now. Not next year. It's now.
Yeah.
So that when you look at the budget process, begin to have that discussion. For example, what's in the budget process they're talking about buying? You remember under the Biden administration, they bought all those old military tanks and Humvees. Now, I don't know what happened to them. I don't know if they sold them off and where the money went. But that's in the budget. When you look at it in terms of the question of the budget, that's in the line item budget about a civil forfeiture. When you look what happened in Missouri, in other cities, East St. Louis, the police department made their ability to make money off the civil forfeiture because that was in the budget. That's how they raised their money. Now, is that true with IMPD? I don't know because I haven't looked at the budget, but those are questions you look at. It gives you the grounding, the understanding, the budget process, and so you can begin laying out the work for the long term. This is long term. If you're talking about shifting police, what policing is going to look like. You see all over the country, people talking about changing, do they do mental health? Do they do the issue turning to homelessness? Who does that? And you shift those budgets. That's a positive discussion. It is long term.
So, and I wish we had, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people who are watching and listening to this conversation and understanding it's exactly the point that you're making, which is what is immediate, short-term, mid-range, long-term. Can we organize this? And I agree. I agree with you that, and hopefully those who are listening understand the rationale that you've made, which is that all agenda items may be important. They just may not be important right now because of where we are. And so I wish that we had more on, but let me just say this. How do people get in touch with the work that you all are doing? How do they stay in touch with that?
Well, you can look on our website, NAACP, Indy, NAACP at org. You can send it to me, and my email is rebohannon@gmail.com. You can call the I don't know have the number offhand, but you call the Indianapolis branch NHSP. It's on the website, and it's call the branch. We need bodies, and let me make that clear. We're a volunteer organization, and so we have the community engagement committee. We have a committee that deals with community engagement, which is a lot of this discussion about policing and stuff. They need bodies who understand that. We need researchers. We need people who understand numbers. Legal Redress Committee. We deal with in terms of calls coming in, individuals, and have problems with the police department or other issues, and we direct them where it needs to go. We look at partnership. We're now in the process of discussion with the ACLU and others about trying to understand their agenda, what we can match into, what we can buy into, and with other folks that we can buy into what is theirs. We understand every organization has their mission, and so all are important. And we ought to understand that not every organization can buy into everything you do. They can buy into some things you do and say, how do I help this piece I can do? And so what I say it took me a long time as a young activist to learn that. It's understanding that don't turn away help because they won't buy your entire agenda.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's deep. That's deep right there.
Because as young kids, we learn, we say, well, if you ain't buy my whole agenda, you ain't important, or you don't want to work with me. And I understand that every organization has an own specific purpose and mission. And the question is, what piece can you buy on and work with me on? And I recognize the rest of us may not what you can buy onto, but I'm appreciative that you can help me on this issue.
And I echo that. I really do echo that. And again, I'm encouraging y'all to go to that website because, I echo that because of the community work that we do. There are some people that they feel like if they're not, totally bought in to everything that's going on, they can't help or they can't get involved or they can't volunteer. And what you're saying is that get in where you fit in.
Exactly right. Exactly right.
Wow. We are out of time. I got to go. We're going to take a minute and take a little bit of a break. I wanted y'all who are, who have joined into the conversation, you all can continue to chat in the conversation. Just know that we will be right back in, about 30 minutes. We have one more, we have another interview coming up at 10:30 with Reverend David Green, Sr. He is with the Concerned Clergy. I want y'all to come back and join in that conversation, continue the conversation. We're going to be on pretty much all afternoon, as you can see. We have coming up the candidate for governor, Dr. Woody Myers, is going to be on today. Dee Ross is going to be on at 1:30 p.m. with the Ross Foundation. And we have a representative from Indiana Black Expo that's going to be on. So I definitely want y'all to stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Stick around. Actually, you know what I'm going to do in a few minutes? I'm going to go to another good friend of mine, James Wilson. James Wilson is actually Attorney Bohannon. He's actually out on the street right now at some of the rallies. So we're going to bring him into the conversation and have him share with us what he's seeing on the street. And I think I'm going to bring him on here in about 5 minutes. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Attorney Bohannon, I want to thank you for this time. I definitely want to have you back. We need to stay contextual with these conversations. We need to stay right on top of it and continue to let the community know what's going on, what you're representing, what you all are doing, how you all are integrating with the other organizations like the AACI, Indy 10, the women's movement, other organizations that are doing things. We want to know what y'all are doing to keep everyone abreast of the progress that we're making in our community. And again, this is not a moment, this is a movement. And the only way it's going to be a movement is that we've got to continue to communicate with one another, which is the total reason why we have Community Conversations TV. Make sense? All right.
Makes sense.
I'm selling it. So, Attorney Bohannon, thank you for joining with
You're
us.
welcome.
Thank y'all that's been in the conversation in the chat. Continue to share this. I'm going to come back in about 5 minutes. We're going to have Brother James Wilson on, and he's going to tell us in 5 minutes, he's going to tell us what's going on in the street. So y'all stay tuned. God bless you. I'm going to see y'all back here in just a few minutes. ultimate goal of the Urban Servant Leadership Unconference, we want to be able to bring together as many pieces of the puzzle as we can so that ultimately we put together a picture that helps us see and to understand what a valuable, sustainable community needs to look like.
I'm here because my personal life mission is to help others help themselves. It's the epitome of what servant leadership is all about.
So I wanted to come to the Unconference today so that I could discuss the Healthy Indiana Plan, which is a healthcare plan that's available to folks between the ages of 19 and 64 who have incomes at less than 138% of the federal poverty level.
My name is Anita Adams. I work with Indianapolis Healthy Start. We know that there are inequalities that are happening in our community, and we work to reduce those for families.
You have to be called to be a servant leader because you know that you are going to give and you may not get anything in return, and that's okay. And an urban servant leader is called to do what we do.
You should really research it. If you were not here, I urge you, I cannot say this enough, that you need to come to the next conference.
What's up, everybody? This is Pastor G. I am so excited. As I told y'all a minute ago, we are sticking an interview in because this is so important. So I'm not even going to wait. I'm going to bring him in. He's going to tell y'all who he is. He's my good brother. Brother James is in the house. What is going on with you, brother?
Getting up early in the morning. Getting the day going. How you be?
Last time I checked, it was an early bird that got the worm. That's what I found out.
Hey,
right?
I'm up on a...
That's what's up. Hey, man, tell everybody who you are. Tell them what what organization you represent. And more than anything, we want to know what you got up for today, because I know that there's still a lot going on in the streets around, what we've been dealing with over the past couple of weeks. So talk to the people. Who are you? What are you representing? And let's talk about what you got going on today.
My name is James Wilson. I'm the CEO of Circle Up Indy. We represent economic development and community empowerment. And so what we got going on today in Martindale Brightwood at 3 p.m. At the Oscar Robertson Park, we're talking about everything the community wants to be involved in and whatnot, and we're allowing them to get involved, from community cleanup, community committees, and so on and so forth. There's an association that's over there, but we feel that we want to be the heart of the people and listen to them and let them build out what they want to see for the community and not let organizations do it.
Hear me. Now y'all can hear me. This is an opportunity for you all to sort of listen to the community. Is that correct?
Yeah, listening, and as well, it's not just listening, but for them to get engaged and build out committees for them to sit on. Direct committees with all residents to see what they want their community to build and to be like, and we're going to help do that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so who all are you working with as you're going out there? Who's partnering with you? Who's collaborating? Where's all the hands and feet coming from to get this done?
Yep. John Grice, I have to get a shout out to John Grice because he's been working hard bringing everybody together with his organization, and we're partnered with him. So it's my organizations, and I believe Families First. His organization, our Fathers First, his organization, to kind of be out and about, rounding everybody up, getting everybody to come to the table.
Are you talking about Fathers and Family?
No, I think it's Fathers First. I get it mixed up with Fathers and Family sometimes, but it's John Grice's organization. I think it's Families First.
Okay. So we need, when you talk to them, we need to get them on here so that the community can kind of know who they are, what they're into, and how, they can sort of be a part, because there are probably some people, again, what we're finding is there's a lot of people sitting around saying, I want to do something, I just don't know what to do. Or I want to start something, I just don't know where to start. And so when we have great people like James Wilson, and we have great people like many of you all have seen today, Attorney Bohannon, he was the NAACP Redress Committee, and he made his pitch. He's like, look, we need help. Why? Because this work doesn't just last for a week. It doesn't just last for a month. This work we got to do last a while. It takes time to get this done, and you need soldiers. Is that right? You need some soldiers, don't you, Brother James?
Yes. So
what does that look like?
And so what that looks like, we're calling the new Brightwood. And so John Grice outlined what the new Brightwood looks like. And the topics for discussion today is neighborhood cleanup, creating of neighborhood associations, and new ideas. And so we want to hear directly from the people. But this is the challenge. So many people want to get involved, and that's excellent. Please do. But like you stated earlier in your introduction, a servant leader, it comes with a heart. It's not a such thing as pay there or anything like that. And it's a lot of sacrifices that we have to make for the people that we care for and that we love. So I challenge those who do want to get involved, come out today at Oscar Robertson Park at 3 p.m. as we start to develop the new Brightwood.
Sorry, I keep turning it off to make sure we don't have an echo. I apologize, y'all. Nevertheless, here's my point. This brother is so critical to the progress of our city, Brother James Wilson, and I want y'all, again, he wasn't on the list or the agenda to be interviewed today, but because he is such an important part of the progress we're making in our city, I wanted to make sure that he got on to share kind of what he's doing. If there's anyone else out there, if you're marching, if you are protesting, if you are representing an agenda, and remember, I'm sending y'all to the website to check out all the list of demands and all the agendas. Go to uniteforchange.org. On that site, you'll see a link for the progress page. When you go there, you'll get to see what everyone is fighting for, what everyone is advocating for. There are some items, as someone asked about in the chat box, there's some items that are overlapping. You know, there are some people that are kind of doing the same thing. And so what we're saying is that if you want to get moving and you want to get active, this is not just about going and standing with a picket sign and a postcard. You know, there's actual work. There's actual listening. There's actual activities, engagement that has to happen in order to get it done. So I'm going to say, Bro James, give them one more time what y'all are doing in Brightwood. When is it and where is it? One more time.
Yep. We're creating the new Brightwood at Oscar Robertson Park at 3 p.m. today. I encourage you to come out. As John Gerton said, this work takes everybody. We are one of many. And Pastor John, I apologize, we haven't got our list of demands, but we've been dealing with some stuff behind the scenes and making sure our demands being met on behalf of the community, and not only the community of this state. I got you.
I did it again. Nobody heard what I said. That's all right. Nevertheless, you go do the work. We're gonna sign off for right now. We're gonna come back in about 10 minutes with Reverend Green, who is with the Concerned Clergy. We'll be back in 10 minutes to talk with him. And so I want y'all to come back in, share this, share, because we want to make sure that everyone is informed and aware about what's going on in our community. Bro James, thank you, sir. God bless.
Always.
Peace. We'll see you a little later.